Booktube. This is Kelly with Books I'm Not Reading. This is my third or fourth attempt at making this video. I've been having technical challenges this morning, so if this one doesn't work, then I don't know what I'm going to do. But this is a original tag called My Neck of the Woods tag. It was inspired by the Reading My Country tag, which is actually one of my favorite tags to watch. I love hearing people speak in different languages or with accents, and I love learning so much about literature that it hasn't been translated in English or that I'm just not familiar with at all. So I really enjoy that tag, which was created by Cook, Read, Create, and I will link to that tag below. But this one is more kind of a little more regionalized maybe. So it's the My Neck of the Woods tag, which basically just means like you decide how big the area is that you're going to be talking about. I did not feel that I could do justice to reading my country, the United States of America. There are so many authors, and I mean, trying to get from Hawaii to Maine, like I just wouldn't be able to do it justice. So I'm focusing my neck of the woods, and that's the first question is, what is your neck of the woods? And it could be your state, it could be a corner of your state, it could be a province, it could be a region of your country or of your state. So you could focus on, however biggest space. And if you do want to do your whole country, you can do that too. So anyway, my neck of the woods is Wyoming, which is where I was born. I spent most of my life here, lived in Missoula, Montana for about 4.5 years, and then I also lived in Chicago for a year, and New York City for a summer. I got to live in France for a summer, so but most of the rest of the time it's been in Wyoming. Now, I currently live in Casper, which is in the central part of the state, and hopefully somewhere in this video there will be a map of Wyoming. But so I'm going to take on Wyoming. And then the second question is to discuss 5 authors or books that you feel are really important to your neck of the woods. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here because there are so many books that I would like to talk about. I went to the library and found some hilarious things like the great Wyoming whorehouses as opposed to the, not so great whorehouses of Wyoming, which I found hilarious. This beautiful book is actually called When Casper Was a Sunday School Town. I'm not sure I ever actually believed that about Casper. It still very much has that kind of Wild West feeling, but I had to share with you guys this photo here. Look how they spelled truck. Oh my god. And it's so sad. Anyway. And the other thing that really inspired me to do this tag was this book right here, which again, I don't expect you to find by, but this is The History of Wyoming by T.A. Larson, and this is actually the one that my parents had in college. It's signed by the author. I'll show you right here. I'm trying to cover up their names, keep their privacy. So hopefully you can see that. But this is basically what for many, many years, if you went to the University of Wyoming, you had to take a Wyoming history class, and this was the textbook, and T.A. Larson was your teacher. I love that it was published by the University of Nebraska Press, because there's so few people in Wyoming. There isn't any University of Wyoming press to make our own books, so we have to branch out a little bit. So a few authors that you may or may not be familiar with when it comes to Wyoming, and the tag is to do 5. I am showing serious self-restraint here because I have this whole stack of books right here that I'd love to talk to you about, although I haven't read a huge majority of them, but these are all connected to Wyoming. But the first one I'm going to start out with, and I'm going to cheat and talk about a couple of the authors that you may already be familiar with. So this is Open Season by C.J. Box and The Cold Dish by Craig Johnson. This is the Longmire series, which you may have seen on A&E or Netflix. And C.J. Box's, this is his Joe Pickett series. He has some standalone books. I've actually met C.J. Box and seen Craig Johnson in passing. C.J. Box is actually a super nice guy. I've read both of these books. This one's about a game warden. This one's about a sheriff in a fictional county. Craig Johnson, he lives in Ucross, which he, like, in his bio, like, it's almost like he's bragging about how there's only 25 people in Ucross. Like, ooh. I mean, so what? If you like Westerns or if you want to read about, again, this part of the world. But there are New York Times best-selling books. This one, The Spirit of Steamboat, and Steamboat is, of course, the Wyoming mascot, if you can see right there, like on the bucking horse there. That's Steamboat. And, you know, this was a one-book Wyoming choice, and I was so angry because it's like, you know, the people who are going to read Craig Johnson would have read this anyway and participated. It's really more of a novella, so there's not much for discussion. Felt like it was such a lost opportunity to expose people to something different that they may not have picked up on their own. So, okay, so this next one I have not read, but this is probably the most famous book about Casper specifically. This is called The Sandbar by Walter Jones. Once upon a time, I was going to read this. I have since changed my mind. But it's basically about the seedy side of Casper. Let's see. I'm not exactly sure the timeline of when it stopped becoming the seedy part of town, but it was the red light district. There were killings. Oh, here we go. Whiskey, killings, shootings, knifings were almost a nightly affair on the Sandbar. And I have heard stories about people saying, like, you know, they remember a time whenever you were on that street or that part of town, like, you had to stay on a certain side of the street to avoid, you know, all the hoodlums and killers and drunks and prostitutes and stuff on the other side of the street. And then I also wanted to share with you, let's see. So Mark Sprague is another Wyoming author. He's probably, I don't know, he might be most known for this one, An Unfinished Life. And I do believe this is a signed copy here. Yeah. For Kelly, for friends who become our families. Best, Mark. So that's quite nice. Yeah. This was made, like I said, this was made into a movie. But this is the one I actually really love, Where Rivers Change Direction. And this is more memoir. Mark Sprague grew up on a dude ranch outside of Yellowstone, which is probably the part of Wyoming you all are most familiar with. It's apparently the oldest dude ranch in the state. I don't know if that means anything or not, but just his descriptions of it, of growing up in that kind of really, like, I don't know, cowboy tough kind of life, being isolated. It's beautiful writing. He is very, very talented. So I wanted to make sure Mark Sprague got included in there as well. And I can't talk about Wyoming books without talking about Annie Proulx. Nobody in Wyoming would consider Annie Proulx a Wyoming author. She lived in Wyoming for a while. This is, of course, Close Range, which includes the story Brokeback Mountain. I am very embarrassed that I have not read this, so I am going to take this on and just try to read a story here and there. hopefully even today. We'll see how far I get. But I wanted to show you, in comparison to Mark Sprague's signature, we have Annie Prue's signature up there at the top, and then for Kelly at the bottom. I heard her speak once. It was very awkward. She just took up all of her time by reading her latest short story that had been published in like the New Yorker or something like that. She didn't answer questions. She didn't engage with the audience. She's such a famous author. I mean, she won the Pulitzer Prize, so that's a very big deal. And it's great to have an author of her caliber writing about Wyoming. I really, really wanted to include this one, even though I'm slightly embarrassed that I still haven't got around to reading it. The book I forgot to bring up here is The Meadow by James Galvin. If you like books where the land itself becomes a character, that is definitely the book for you. The writing is just, wow, it's just spectacular. And it's about people who live right along the Wyoming-Colorado border. And I think some of it's, semi autobiographical by James Galvin. I also heard him speak, and he was just so bright and thoughtful and gentle with the audience. Yeah, really. But The Meadow is just an amazing book. I made my book club read it. I'm breaking the rules of my own tag here, but I could not leave without talking about this, Owen Wister's The Virginian. Owen Wister is considered to be the father of the Western. I mean, yeah, this is like the first kind of cowboy book out there. You can stay in places where he stayed in Wyoming. There's Medicine Bow has the Virginian Hotel. Not sure how great the accommodations are there, but you're welcome to visit. And then Jason and I also own this copy, and he had totally forgotten about it. And I don't even know how well you can see. Yeah, we'll get really close there. The Virginian. Here we go. I got it upside down. The Virginian. And I love this copy because I really feel like, I mean, it's so beat up. This was printed in, I think, 1921, and The Virginian came out in 1902. But I love the idea of somebody carrying this around in their back pocket, their saddlebag maybe. Maybe a cowboy did read this out on the range. Who knows? So I'm going to tag a whole bunch of people. You'll be listed below. Again, if you want to do the tag, tell me about your neck of the woods and some authors that I should know. Thanks so much, Booktube. Have a great day.